Right, I'm going to attempt to make a freeze dryer out of some scrap parts. This container is off of one of my old prototypes that's on another video of mine, but essentially just a vacuum chamber that's brought off of Amazon. You can pick them up pretty cheaply. So yeah, so we're going to try and make a proper freeze dryer. What we need first of all is a condenser to get a low temperature to condense the vapour coming off the food. This allows the vacuum pump to stay at a low pressure. This is the only compressor I could find lying about. Obviously I'm only going to use scrap parts. It does work, but it is well oversized for the job really. Looking at the size of the two parts. But it's not a bad thing because it needs to run at a low back pressure anyway to get those low temperatures. Essentially, we're trying to get it at least 20 degrees lower than the actual product temperature. So if your product's at minus 20, you want the condenser running at minus 40. Otherwise, that vapour isn't going to have a strong area to bond to. So to make this as easy as possible, we don't want to be wrapping this in loads of insulation. It's just going to be a pain. So, and another added problem that we're going to have to solve. Not that it's hard to put insulation around it, but there's one easy way to solve it. And that is we put a condenser on the inside. So the pipes are in the vacuum. As of course, the vacuum's a very good insulator. So that's what I'm going to attempt to do on this. We're going to put the copper pipe, a coil in here, flow the refrigerant through that and hopefully get an even lower temperature. So I found a bit of 3/8 copper. Now we've got to make a coil out of this that can go inside this. Right, so that should now fit in here. So drilling through stainless steel is quite difficult. You need a quite a hard drill bit for it. And I don't have one the size of this tube. So I'm going to be quite tight because we're going to want to braze around we want to braze the stainless to the copper. Again, not an easy task, so we want to make it as tight as we possibly can. So let's do a rough hole to begin with. Refrigeration. So I think we're pretty much centre. Doesn't have to be exact. I'm not really too worried about. Now gonna put add a capillary in. This is where the refrigerant goes through it and then shoots out the other end at a high pressure and is forced into a low pressure environment, therefore cooling, creating a cooling effect. So I'm just gonna, this is off an old machine again, just lying around, so I'm gonna pop that in there. I know roughly how long these capillaries are meant to be, but it is a bit of trial and error, but I've done it enough times now to know that this should work. It's about 1.2 meters. I'm going to connect a 1/4 inch to the other end of this 3/8 because the compressor has a small inlet anyway, only a 1/4 inch, so it's not going to make that much of a difference. So we've got our 2 pipes ready to go, our nitrogen hooked up. I think we're ready to braise. Now everything's cooled down a bit, I'm going to wrap the capillary around the suction line. So now everything's been silver soldered, which actually turned out pretty well for a rough sort of job. Right, I now need to make a shelf for the food to go onto. So I'm thinking this is the lid for the vacuum chamber. So I'm thinking I can glue this bit of copper in here, which is connected to where the vacuum hose is going to go. Now if I can attach this tray to the top of this, it will act as a nice little holder for the tray as well. All we need is a heater on the bottom of this, or a heater mat. And hopefully I can glue this pipe into here, and then now act as a tray. Now I'll need something to control the temperature of this heating mat, so the silicone heating mat. So NTC probe, commonly used on fridges and stuff, and it works with a lot of controllers as well. They're easy to get hold of. So just a 2-wire one, doesn't need to be very accurate for this type of freeze dryer. It's not like we're building anything fancy. So now we have the lid and the control, which fits neatly inside there. What I'm going to do now is attach one of these to them, which is basically just a filter and dryer, so it takes helps take moisture out of the system. So that just goes onto there, and then the capillary will just go into there like that, and that should work. Now we get this. You can see already it's frosting up. Minus 42 on the pressure. We don't want to be much higher than 0 on the PSI. But we're trying to be as cold as possible. It's R290. It's a propane. As for the controls, what we've got is a transformer and a heating control. So we've got some common sweets here, some Skittles and Squashies. I'm going to try both of these in there. So, pop some of these on there. Let's put 2 of them on there. And then the famous Skittles. Make sure the shelf isn't touching the coil in there. Let's plug it in. Compressor started up. Heater is on. Set for 60, which we want for sweets. Now we don't want to turn the vacuum on till the evaporator's cooled down and the shelf has heated up a little bit. So give that a few minutes. Well, give about 10 minutes. So for the pump, this is actually the pump that came with the container from Amazon. Three hours on, and it's going pretty well. Oil's pretty clear as well, which is good. Even though this is only sweets, there will be a bit of moisture. Let's give it a go. Probably could have done with a little bit more freeze drying, but definitely freeze dried. It's actually quite nice. I'll have to try it with some fruit in future, but that's going to be the real test. But it is freeze drying. Hope you enjoyed watching. I mean, this was a cheap setup made out of bits and pieces from around the workshop. Not everyone's going to have stuff like this lying around, but it certainly proves you can build a freeze dryer pretty cheaply. There is a bit more involved in the more high-tech machines that I've got here, but if you want a real basic thing, this definitely works, especially if you want the odd freeze-dried sweets or even fruit. I imagine will freeze dry in this quite well. And you just don't have so much control like on the larger freeze dryers. You'll have pressure control. You'll have a lot more control systems in place to make sure you don't overheat the food and the pressure doesn't rise beyond a certain point. But for now, thanks for watching.